Hey there, Nick Hackers here. In this video, we're going to go over using Hadolint to lint your Docker files. So this is a very popular open source tool. It's one of the most popular ones for linting your Docker file. And, it's going to help you stick to best practices as well as potentially save you some time because it can detect errors before building your Docker image. And this command that we're going to run here, Hadolint, it'll finish in about 1 second. So it's really nice to be, capable of identifying errors before going through the build process that may take minutes potentially to reach the part that might have an error. So I actually did recently add Hadolint to all of my example web apps for Flash, Django, Phoenix, Rails, Node, and Play. These are all up on GitHub. I have Hadolint now running in the CI process. So, if any PRs are open on the project or, I just make a change to my Docker file, Hadolint is going to check that out in CI just to make sure that there's no issues. And I have this all set up here with a run script where I can just run Hadolint. It's going to lint everything, produce the output here in 2 or 3 seconds, whatever, and everything is good to go. Now, what's really neat about Hadolint is you can actually run it as a Docker image. So if you go down here to how to use it, you can just do a Docker container run here. Let's remove the container after it's running. We'll use -i so we get some colors. We can just pull this image here. And basically the takeaway is, you can just send your Docker file in as input here. If you have a custom named Docker file, you just would use the custom name here instead of Docker file. And that's all I did here in the run script. And, all the links to this one will be up on GitHub, but let me just show you that really fast here. If I go to Hadolint here, lint Docker file with Hadolint. All it does is a Docker container run here. And then I'm actually ignoring a very specific rule here. If I go to their rules here, there's about 100 different rules listed somewhere down here. That's all of them over here. And one of these rules, the ones that I ignored, what is this one? DL3008. So if I do DL3008, it's this one. So this one wants to make sure that you pin all of your apt packages that you install, and this will produce a warning. And I don't know, if I go to my Docker file here, it's like I am apt installing build essential here, and I just don't feel like it's worth it to do whatever it is, like equals or maybe equals, and then putting in, some version all the way down to the patch version here, because the actual distro that I happen to be using here, like Bullseye Slim, that is going to make sure that this specific package, actually this is a really bad example because build essential is kind of like one of those like container packages where there's a whole bunch of different things that get installed. But something like this, better example, like libpqdev. Now, I could totally version lock that down to a specific version or curl or whatever, and that's cool. But Slim Bullseye is going to make sure that these versions are going to be the same every single time I build that, except for maybe installing security patches, which I actually do want to be different every time I build the image because I want to have those security patches in when I'm periodically building my images. So yes, that is why I ignore this rule here because I don't like explicitly setting that. Now, when it comes to things like package dependencies for the application, sure, I'm going to definitely patch these down to, or lock these down to the exact patch version. That's a really good thing to do. But that's not related to the thing I just ignored with Hadolint there. But going back to over here, Hadolint, there are about 100 different warnings and errors and different things to get notified of, which is amazing. And going back to that run file here, it's all set up here, ready to go. And then I actually have it down here. And potentially I want to be able to pass in custom flags to Hadolint beyond this. But I'm actually calling it down here in my CI function where this just runs like very early on in the process here, right after it runs shell check on all the shell scripts that I have in the project, then it just runs Hadolint. Yes, nice. But now let's actually maybe go over seeing how it potentially could help you. So I don't know if you know this, but when it comes to defining label keys with Docker, you cannot have underscores as part of the key name. Now, it'll just get, I think it may just get stripped out and then you would just end up with not having it there. But this actually did come up. So I have been using Docker for a pretty decent amount of time, right? 2014. I wouldn't say I'm an expert of all the low-level things, but I've written a couple of Docker files in my time. And even Hadolint, when I ran it against all these different projects, did find various things. For example, in the Play project here, this is a project that Lexi and I worked on together. So we decided to put our maintainer tags separately here together, whatever, as 2 separate label tags is what I'm trying to say. But we initially had them as underscores. And when I ran Hadolint against that, then Hadolint was like, yo, you can't really use underscores there. Basically what we see here, right? Invalid label key on line 2. So then I went ahead and patched that very quickly just to add the dashes here instead of underscores, and it fixed that one. Also, let's see, what were some other ones that it identified? I think in this case here, I know sometimes syntax highlighting gets a little bit funky here in Vim when I scroll very fast. I don't know what's up with that, but I think in this case, we may have done this. So like the string syntax instead of the array syntax, I've actually covered that one in a very recent Docker con talk that I gave in 2021. I'll leave a card up for that if you want to read it or listen to that one. I covered a lot more than that, but basically you should be using the array syntax. I don't want to get into that one in this video, but yeah, I caught that because it just slipped by because, you know, it's a little bit more intuitive maybe to write the string syntax. Sorry for the cut there, had to clear my throat. But yes, a little bit more intuitive to write the string syntax because sometimes you just do it, right? But still, it should be the array syntax. So I'm really thankful that tools like Hadolint exist because it helped detect that. Let's see, where was another one? I think in the Rails application here, me in this case, because I just happen to be the only maintainer of this project, I am installing yarn specifically, like curling it down. There's like a deb package here, blah, 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 blah. And then it just gets output to the yarn list file here. But the takeaway here is I'm using a pipe. I'm actually using a pipe in a couple of spots here, right? Piping this to bash, piping that to apt-key add, piping that to t. And totally fine. You can do that in a run instruction, no problem. But when you run Hadolint against this in the old version, it will warn you that, you know, you are using a pipe inside of a run instruction. And you should set pipe fail in that case. So in this case, you can just do set, -o pipe fail. I've done videos about like shell scripting and shell check in the past, which by the way, as an aside, Hadolint actually will use shell check to check all of your shell scripts that are in run instructions, which is amazing. So in this case, to fix that, I explicitly make sure we're using bash and not regular shell because you can't use pipe fail with regular shell. So we're just saying, okay, cool, execute all this in the context of a bash shell. And then let's make sure that we have pipe fail set. And then we can use pipes here. And then this is going to give us a clean slate here when we run Hadolint. Although technically this is the Flask application, not the Rails one, but they all pass because this one also has it in its own CI there and it's all passing on GitHub. What else? Yeah, I think in this case too, I may have forgotten to put quotes here. So I think I had this initially. So if I go and go into the Docker Rails example and I run Hadolint here in the Rails app, this is probably going to give us a warning on line 20 here. Yeah, warning on line 20, quote this to prevent word splitting. Now, in this case, this always evaluates to a number, right? It's a way to basically bundle install concurrently based on the number of CPUs that you have. But still, I've done videos about this one in the past where it is a very good idea to pretty much always quote your variables when doing shell scripting things, unless you have a very, 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 very good reason not to. But in this case, yeah, it makes sense to quote that. I just slipped my mind, right? These things happen, human error. So again, really useful tool to have linting there. And I think that is going to be it about this video. Is there anything else to go over? Maybe, maybe not. I know that right now I just have the command ignoring this one rule here, wherever it was, DL3005. But if you find yourself wanting to add like more than one rule exception. By the way, I think all the other ones are good to have, but let's say you wanted to ignore like 7 of them, and it would become, kind of lame if you had to go to like a run script here, or however you're running it in your CI platform or whatever, and you just add like a million different flags here or other stuff. So there is actually a way to customize this tool with its own config file. I don't know where it is in here. So yeah, you can basically just have like a hadolint.yaml file in the current directory of where you're running it. You can do all this types of configuration. You can add a list of all the things that you may want to ignore. And by the way, just a heads up, I didn't cover this explicitly, but when you run this tool and you get an error, so it will, well, in this case, it doesn't because it's only a style issue, but you can totally configure this thing to actually throw a hard error when a specific rule type is encountered. So for example, when it comes to styles, this is always going to exit like successfully. It won't like break CI, but you can say that, all style guides need to be, absolutely perfect, in which case it's going to exit with something greater than 0. So then CI will fail. But when it comes to like warnings and errors by default, those are actually going to break CI because the command will fail. I'm using Z shell here, like this $ would be red if the previous command failed. So like in this case, if I do, echo like this, we can see that the last command was successful. Over here, I can just show you real fast with that too. If I go to here, I put in the underscore there. This is also going to pass successfully here. Like it wouldn't break CI. Now that I'm thinking about it, like potentially I actually would want that to break CI. So maybe I will configure Hadolint at some point in the future to fail on style errors. But if I run this again, we can see also it was totally cool. So yeah, I think by default in the README file, it says that warnings and above will exit with greater than 0. But long story short, where I'm going with this one, if you want to configure this thing, you actually can. And down here, yeah, you can just volume mount in your config file when you decide to run Hadolint, and then it's going to use your custom config, and then you would be good to go. So yeah, quick video about this one. And by the way, just a heads up, this isn't posted on my site right now, but by the time you watch this video, it will be on like nicktonattackers.com/blog. I'll leave a link to this one in the description too. It's basically just a written version of this video that I'm making now, a little bit more concise here, but yeah, it gives you like the example commands that you can run. Perhaps I'll even update this one after this video about using a config file in the off chance that yeah, I decide to add that to all the example repos after this video has been published, which may happen, and we will see. But on that note, yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be using Hadolint, or maybe you're using it already. What custom rules have you put in your config file, if you have any? On that note, yeah, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up because it really helps. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching.